We will continue with nepotism. It's really good to talk about nepotism for so long, right? Okay, so we are on page 6, on or 5? 5. And we will conclude, this shiur will conclude the series of classes. So we are on page 5, towards the end of page 5, in Shut Igrot Moshe. So just to give a very short summary, what we started many weeks ago, we spoke about the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu wanting to have his children becoming his successors, and we spoke about the different opinions in the Midrash, why the answer was no, and what was the thought that Moshe had and why. And then we went into the halacha of it. We showed some questions in halacha, and now we're going to conclude with some other responsa regarding that subject. Okay, so Reb Moshe Feinstein. Reb Moshe Feinstein was asked the question, Yom Yerushalayim, Tafshin Lamed Chet, which is many years ago. Okay, so that's 47 years ago. And he says the following. The question is like that. הנה, בדבר חכם גדול אחד, שהחזיק באיזה קהל, ומקום לנהוג ענייני הרב הנוהגים בבית המדרש, חשוב הרבה שנים, ודרש שם כל הצריך, וגם לימד שם בשיעורים קבועים. So, the question is, there is a rabbi who is in that specific shul for many, many years. He gives speeches between Mincha Ma'ariv, Shabbat. He's doing everything that is needed. אך היה כל זה שלא במינוי. He did it on a volunteer basis, but he was never appointed to be the formal rabbi. אך כל זה היה שלא במינוי, אבל הכל ידעו מזה, גם מהגבאים הממונים מהקהל, במשך שנים רבות שהיו מי שהיו ולא אמרו כלום. But it was a known fact that he was, quote unquote, the rabbi. Even the Gabayim that were there for many years, they also thought that he is the rabbi. So he's like a rabbi without being appointed to be the rabbi. And now, another rabbi comes along. And he wants to be the rabbi. So can you remove this one who was a rabbi without really being appointed to be the rabbi? Now, this is, by the way, it's a well-known phenomena in communities that they start a shul without really having a rabbi, or it's just like a minyan, and then someone is just like functioning as a rabbi, but he was never really appointed, and then vayar kitov, and he stays. Yeah, and then when you really want to hire a rabbi, then the problems surfaces. So Reb Moshe says the following. Pashut לעניות דעתי, he says it's very simple to my humble opinion, שנחשב הרב דקהל ההוא משני טעמים. He says this person who was never appointed is considered as the Rav of this community, and it's due to two main reasons. חדה, first, ממה שכתוב ברמה, what it says in the רמה, יורד דעה, סימן רמ"ה, סעיף כ"ב, מי שהוחזק לרב בעיר, אפילו יחזיק בעצמו באיזה שררה, אין להורידו מגדולתו, אף על פי שבא לשם אחר גדול ממנו. It says first, based on what the Rama, Rabbi Moshe Isserlish, in the 16th century says as part of the gloss in the Shulchan Aruch, that if someone held on to a position, even though he was not appointed, but he did it for years, you cannot remove him from his position. So that's one. שנית, הובא מקצת דבריו בהגר"א, ולא שייך זה ללמוד תורה שכתב הרמ"א ברישא, שהוא רק לימוד התורה, גמרא והלכות, וגם כן הוא רק בגדול כמוהו, או בערך כמוהו ללא פחותים במדרגתם כמפורש שם, אם הוא גדול וראוי לכך. אבל בשאר עניינים, לדרוש לפני הקהל וכדומה, בעניינים השייכים לרב הקהל, בין ענייני פרנסה, בין ענייני כבוד, אין רשאים לסלק ולמנות לאחר, ולא רב אחר רשאי לבוא בגבולו. So he says, another rabbi can come along and let's say he can be a posek. Let's say this Rav is not a posek. He's a good speaker. He's a good magid. He's a good psychologist. Very good. So that you don't replace him. The other guy can maybe can give a psak. Okay. ושנית, מה שהיה שם הרבה שנים, וכל הקהל הכירו, אותו להרב, ולא אמרו לו שאין לו זכות הרבנות בקהילה, אלא מחמת שעדיין לא קיבלו עליהם שום רב מחמת שאין להם מעות לשלם לרב. הם מניחים לו לנהוג בדברים האלו כרב, אבל בכל עת ושעה שיוכלו, I will translate in a second, שיוכלו לקח רב, ייקחו אותו, ואף בלא שכר, כשיבוא אחר וירצו בו מאיזה טעם ייקחו. יש להחשיב זה כקבלה, ואין רשאין לקח אחר. אף שהיה חכם זה מתנהג ומוחזק בדברים אלו דרבנות בלא שכר, ואם יש לקהל איזה טענות לסלקו ולמנות אחר, צריכים לתבוע בדין. So the second reason is the fact that the Kehillah did not say a thing for such a long time. Which means, you have a rabbi who was not appointed, and he functions as a rabbi, right? So, a week, 2, 3, it's nice. You would expect the Kehillah to come and tell him, look, we really appreciate what you do, but just one thing, let's clear the air. You are not our rabbi. We do enjoy your talks, we do enjoy your presence, but we just want to tell you that what? That in a chance or in a time that someone else will come and we are ready to hire a rabbi, you are not considered to be what? The rabbi here. If they would say that, fine, they didn't, baya shelahem. Okay, now, if they have claims against him, I don't know, he is not appropriate, he's not nice, he's not, okay, sue me. Okay? That's also true. Yeah, sometimes people complain only after they see something else. Okay? And sometimes they just complain because they like to complain. But whatever it is, if they did not reveal their opinions before, he is the rabbi. Okay. It might be that he just functions as a magid or whatever, and each one of them, reach out to a different posek. Not necessarily that he... By the way, I know and heard about some rabbanim of keilot that they don't want to make a psak. They are not the poskim. They're just magidei shiur, but they don't want to have anything to do with psak. Oh, because he thought that there is no rabbi. And someone reached out to him and says, oh, sure, I can be a candidate. Came down, and then he hears that there is a rabbi. Yes, okay. So, let's see Shut Shevet HaLevi. Rabbi Yitzchak HaLevi Vazner, if I'm not mistaken. Mikol Makom. So, his question is about the Chatan, the son-in-law. So, you had, the father-in-law was the rabbi, he passed away. Can you say that it not only goes to whom? To the children, but it goes also to whom? To the son-in-law. Do you see how we view a son-in-law? Like you're truly your son, right? Beautiful. The what? Right. So let's see. This is an interesting thing. מכל מקום הדבר פשוט. במקום הבן אין החתן יורש כלום. Now, here it's a bit different. It's not that there is no son. There is a son, and there is a son-in-law. And the son-in-law says, I would like to take over, and the son says, no, I would like to take. Now, this is interesting. By the way, even with the Rebbe Milubavitch, there was someone close. There was the son, if I'm not mistaken. Grandson? Nephew? Grandson? No, not the Rebbe. The Rebbe's father-in-law, I think he had a son, if I'm not mistaken. Or a grandson, or someone. Another son-in-law? Okay. I think it will be resolved if the daughter will take over, right? So, so here we have the issue of a son versus a son-in-law. You see how exciting it can be?
Is this also Rabbi?
No, this is Shut Shevet HaLevi. That's Rabbi Yitzchak Levi Vazner. Yeah, page 6. Okay. So, מכל מקום הדבר פשוט. שבמקום הבן אין החתן יורש כלום. When there is the son-in-law gets כלום. Nothing. ואף דמבואר בתשובת הרי בשמים תניאנה, סימן כ"ו, בשמש הקהל שנפטר והחזיק אחריו חתנו בשמשות ג' שנים, ובין המשמש לא ערער כלום. So here we have another case that he brings. He brings in the תשובות הרי בשמים that the question there was like that. There was a shamash and he died. The son-in-law took over for like 3-5 years, even though that shamash had what? Had a son. And the son didn't say anything. 3 years later, the son says what? No, this is my job. This is not your job. והתחיל הבן לערער שהחזקה שייך לו, והשיב, ואחרי שחתנו שימש ג' שנים והבן לא ערער, מחל לו החזקה, והוא גם כן בספר משמרת שלום. מכל מקום, נידון דידן אינו דומה לזה, כיוון שמעלה קיבל בתחילה כתב הרבנות, על ידי אספת הקהילה, וגיסו הרב שליטה לא נקרא לשם בתור רב, ולא היה עדיין זמן מספיק כדי להחזיק ברבנות, ובלאו הכי אין אנו צריכים לזה, כיוון שמעולם נתקבלה כבר, אלא שעניין המכתב שכתב כבודו, שאין בדעתם לבוא עוד, קשה לברר מכאן עד שישמע מה בפי כבוד גיסו בעניין זה, וגם אם היה איזה גילוי דעת מהקהל, אחר כך לקבלו. כי אולי גם אליהם הגיעה השמועה שאין בדעת כבוד מעלתו לבוא, בכל מקום לא הכריע בנקודה הזו הצריכה ליבון. So this case becomes a bit complicated. The case that הרי בשמים brought was what? The shamash died, the son-in-law took over, the son did not say anything for 3 years. After 3 years he realized, oops, maybe it's a good position, and he basically what? Appealed and said, you know what, I want the job. Okay, good, shkoyech, that's wonderful. But we say, מה לעשות, you were silent for 3 years, חזקה, גמר. Here the story is a bit more complicated. And why it is a bit more complicated? Because the son-in-law indicates that what? That the kahal also approached him. Shut Shevet HaLevi says, look, I can't clarify that. I don't know exactly what's the story. If I would know the story, I might make a better psak, but I don't know the story. The thing is like that. This is a very interesting thing. When we say that, okay, let's put it like that. Let's make it complicated. We like complicated stories? Why not? If it's not fun, right? If it's so easy, it's pashut. We said that always the ben bechor has the right? So if it's a ben bechor versus a son-in-law, אין מה לדבר, פשוט. Let's say that there is a daughter, she is the firstborn, okay? And then there is a son, second son, okay? And then there is a son-in-law. And not necessarily, maybe to even another daughter. So I will make it as complicated as I can. So, and the son-in-law is definitely fits the bill of ממלא מקום אבותיו בחוכמה וביראה. He can basically fulfill his father-in-law's shoes in wisdom and in yirat Hashem, in being a God-fearing person. And the son can fulfill his father's place in yirat Shamayim, let's say, not chokhmah, which was the indicator, right? You remember the fear of God. And the people would like to see the son-in-law, dafta, not the son. Do you still think that the son has a better right than the son-in-law or not? Okay, let's open it up. Yes. No, before a question. Don't be a good Jew. Don't answer me with a question.
What is the qualification?
We said wisdom, chokhmah, virat shamayim.
Well, my son called himself Rav, and I say, you don't have smicha. He says, everybody's a Rav, but now he's smicha, now he's rabbi.
No, both of them have smicha, both of them are good. This is not the issue. Don't ruin my story now. I just made up a story. Okay? Yes. Oh, don't say names and places. It happened somewhere on one of the continents. Yes.
Passed away, unfortunately. He had a son who
And what was so the story was acceptable. But why? Yeah. There was a shul somewhere, and the rabbi passed away, and the son-in-law took over, even though the son was eligible, and it was accepted. Now, do you know why the son-in-law was elected and not the son? Chokhmah. Oh, interesting. So if you remember, and I don't expect you to remember that, that's not fair. It was 3 weeks ago, we spoke about the fact that the Rambam says that the most important thing for a son to take over is Irat Shamayim, not Chokhmah. So, now, obviously, we're not talking about a dummy, right? We're not talking about someone who is totally dumb and just has Irat Shamayim. Or even for Irat Shamayim, you need to be Tzad Chacham, right? So, just in terms of intelligence and wisdom and whatever experience and whatever it is. So, there is something interesting here. When there is a Ben Bechor, so it seems to be that all the Dinei Yerusha of Bechor obviously applies. When it comes to a regular son versus son-in-law, it might be that we need to see this idea of giving the position in Yerusha do we see that as a kol nishar b'mishpacha? So then, son-in-law, who cares? Or it only goes to whom? To biological children. Very similar to what? To Melech. Very good. Melech does not go to the son-in-law. It goes to whom? To the son. And if there is no son, there's no such a thing, okay, it goes to the son-in-law. Okay, many times maybe it happened, but not in Tanakh. So the idea is, it's very interesting, according to the Shut Shevet HaLevi, he says in a very general way, Bimkom haben ein hachatan yoresh klum. Now, this is, as we already prefaced last week, it's only in places that there is no voting process. We already spoke about the fact that what? That in most of the Rabbanuyot today, what do? You have a contract. And you have a contract, and it says 3 years, 5 years. The problem can be when you have a lifetime contract. A lifetime contract. A lifetime contract means what? You are there forever. Which means we are taking you only out of the shul with a stretcher, right? That's what it means. So, when someone receives such a contract, a lifetime contract, then it might be that he has a taina, that his position will go also to whom? To his children. Okay. Have that in mind. Oh, wow, okay. One.
Realizes he may have Yirat Shamayim, but he doesn't have the same chachma as his brother-in-law. And he voluntarily, like, please go.
Oh, that's wonderful. We should do a tribute dinner for him, give him a nice award, and tell him shkoyach and run him out of town. Yes.
Does not want the son, but wants somebody else. That's not even related, nothing. Not even son-in-law, but nothing. Doesn't the kahila have the right to do that?
Yes. So we said only if this rabbi was hired with a contract. Here, in the cases, especially in the ancient times, it was not by a contract. He was just there. He was there until he died, and then he has the right to give it to his children. Then the only question is, let's say if the son is not worthy to be a rabbi at all, or even in cases that there is a Yerusha, what would you do when the Kehillah says, we don't want him? Not because he's a terrible person, we just don't like him. We didn't like his father either. We had nothing else to do. He was there. But we definitely don't like his child. Okay? Baruch Hashem, a father like a son like his father, and we didn't like the father, we don't like the son. Can you because we know it's a recipe for a disaster.
No, there is a congregation somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the son stayed. The congregation did not want people.
Halachically, it's correct. Realistically, it's a recipe for a disaster. Okay. There was one more question, I think. No? Okay. Yes?
In his lifetime, he had a lifetime contract. It's his lifetime, not the son's life. Like, you have a lifetime contract, it's your life. Your son is not your.
It's the continuation of my life. Okay, yes?
I don't know if you discussed already, but I find it interesting. The two ingredients for Chachma and Yirat Shamayim, how is that measurable to know that the son had more Yirat Shamayim than the son-in-law? Like, it's not measurable, so it's interesting that they were able to stand one against the other.
Very good. We talked about it a little bit a few weeks ago. We talked about wisdom can be somewhat measured. Okay? This rabbi, the son, I don't know, finished just, and he knows everything by heart, and he knows everything that someone asked him, and the son-in-law is not, or vice versa. So for wisdom, there is somewhat of a measure, even though someone can be very humble and not reveal all his wisdom. The Yirat Shamayim part, how can you test it? So we spoke about it, and the answer was, we don't know. Or at least I don't know. How do you measure Yirat Shamayim? By eating a special hashgacha, by having a longer beard, like having tzitziot bachutz, tzitziot bifnim? I mean, how do you measure Yirat Shamayim? Do you give them a test? Do you give them a test? You put them in a place that they can fail and you see what's happened? I don't know. How do you measure something like that? Yes?
I find it troubling that Yachasei Enosh isn't a factor.
Yeah. So don't forget that at least back then, I'm not talking about Shut Shevet HaLevi or even Reb Moshe, even before that when it started, I guess it was less known, less important, less expected. Yeah, I'm with you. Meaning, let's say the son is very wise and has a lot of Yirat Shamayim, but has, zero empathy to people. Okay? And the other one has little less wisdom, maybe a little less Yirat Shamayim, but is very sensitive, very, very generous heart, very kind, very sensitive, very helpful to the congregation. Look, I think it goes back to a different question of what is the true functionality of a Rav in a Kehillah? And every Kehillah has different needs to some extent. Now, there is a lot in common denominator between all those positions, but sometimes it needs to be almost like a hand-tailored for a specific community. But I agree that this consideration is not there at all. Yes?
There is a difference between wisdom and knowledge.
Sure, agree. I don't know, but the translation, the Hebrew translation is chokhmah. What does that mean? I don't know. It's not yeda, but they call a lot of it chokhmah. Yet tkiyat shofar, chokhmah ve'ina melacha. How much chokhmah do you need in tkiyat shofar? Okay, so let's see the Shulchan Aruch. So you were thinking, those rabbis, right? Only rabbis, and the shamash. Baruch Hashem, chazanim also have the problem. I couldn't skip that. I'm not going to talk only about rabbis, I'm going to talk also about chazanim. Shatz, shliach tzibur, שהזקין, became older. ורוצה למנות בנו לסייעו לפרקים. And he wants to appoint his son to be his assistant, like from time to time. אף על פי שאין כל בנו ערב כקולו, even though the son's voice is not exactly as pleasant as his father, אם ממלא מקומו בשאר דברים, בנו קודם לכל אדם, ואין הציבור יכולין למחות בידו. It says if his son, even though his voice is not exactly like his father, so I don't know if he's saying that gently, or he's like saying that not gently, okay? So if the son really helps his father in other things as well, the tzibur cannot say a word. So I don't know yet what is Sha'ar Dvarim, but I can tell you one thing. Rabbi's speech is 20 minutes. Musaf Rosh Hashanah, it's 3 hours. So I don't know what you think about rabbis, but when it comes to chazanim, that can be horrible. Okay, you have a son whose voice is terrible, and you need to listen to him because his father was the chazan. Can you imagine that? Okay, so, says the Magen Avraham, says the following, ואין הציבור יכולים למחות. ומיירי, and this case applies when שקיבלו לשץ כל ימי חייו. They gave him a lifetime contract. ואם כן, בוודאי על דעת כן ניתנה, שאם לפעמים לא יוכל להתפלל, שימנה אחר לסייעו, ואם כן בנו קודם, He says, because he got a lifetime contract, in a lifetime I might get a cold. I might, lose my voice for a Shabbos. So obviously I have the koach to appoint someone else. Who is the someone else? Obviously the first one that comes to mind is my son. ועוד שאפילו לא היה האב ראוי לכך, שורת הדין, שבנו קודם, שמנהג המקום היה שם שהבנים מתמנים תחת האבות. It says, and even if he didn't get a lifetime contract, that was the custom in that place, that what? That the children will take over after their fathers. וכלל גדול אמרו בכל המינויים, and there was a general principle in all the appointments, שהבן קודם, ואפילו בכהן גדול, ואפילו יש אחרים גדולים ממנו. In כהן גדול, the high priest, the son takes over, even though there are other people who are כהנים too, and they are more worthy. עד כאן לשון הרשב"א, עד כאן לשונו, הרשב"א סימן ש' וכן הוא בספרי שכל המנויים בניהם קודמים, וכתב בחכם הממונה להרביץ תורה או לדין לא אמרינן כאן, עד כאן לשונו. And then he says שכל המינויים שהם כתר תורה אין בניהם קודמים, רק מהלל הנשיא ואילך נהגו שבניהם קודמים. Now this is interesting because this is a piece of history that we need to know. We asked the question for many weeks, when did it start? When did it start that the children will take over after their parents died, after the father died, in terms when it comes to rabbinic positions? He wanted to say that it started from when? Hillel Hanasi. Now, we know Hillel, what time was Hillel? 0. He came from Bavel. He learned by Shma'aya ve'Avtalion. He came, remember the story? He came to Israel, and the first question that he was asked by Bnei Betera was, Pesach Shechal B'Shabbat. What do you do with Pesach Shechal B'Shabbat? How do you bring the sacrifice? Even though, whenever you see this sugya, you always ask yourself, that was the first Pesach that fell on Shabbat, but there is a reason for that, not now. But the idea is that Hillel came from Bavel, they appointed him to be the president, and since then, really all the dynasty comes from Hillel. Now, ask yourself a question. Lama dafka az? Which means, why dafka, why specifically? It started then. Okay, open for speculations. You understand the question? To repeat the question? The question is very simple. Why that was the starting point that rabbinic positions were given by Yerusha since Hillel HaNasi? What was before? If you are a rabbi, your son is not necessarily going to take over.
What?
Okay, so one suggestion is Machloket started at that generation. Not exactly in that generation, it started even before. Okay, for 300 years they had this machloket about smicha that we did. I think we did it downstairs, right? Okay, so what else? Beginning of? Okay, so Nuazma. Did what? Beginning of Torah Sheba'al Peh might started even before. The Shmaya ve'Avtalion, the Bnei Betera. Yeah. And what? Anything to do with them being Geirim? So okay, maybe. More speculation. Think. We will not know exactly, but just a speculation.
Among the Romans, who became the Caesar? Was it by his son or?
Oh, okay. So now we are looking out of the box, right? We are not looking internally. Okay. We have, what do we have? Houston, we have a problem? That's the, right? We have a problem. 0 CE means that what? That in 70 years from now, the second Beit HaMikdash will be destroyed. 70 CE, the second Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. Who destroyed it? The Romans. Okay. So from 0 to 70, and this is a speculation, we don't have proofs for that, but it might be, you need to be in a very delicate dance with the Romans. Okay? We'll call it the tension or the relationship needed to be stabilized. Just imagine, you create relationship with the Roman Caesar, and then this guy dies, and then someone else comes along. You want to create what? Stability. And this is very interesting because, again, it's just a suggestion. We know the Gemara says, התירו לבית רבן גמליאל לספר קומי וללמוד לשון יוונית. They allowed the Beit Rabban Gamliel, which is the entire dynasty of the Nesiut, to have a special haircut that's like the Goim, so they don't look so apart from the Goim that they, had conversations with, and also to learn Greek. Why is that? So when they speak to the Romans, they look almost the same. They look almost the same. And it's in order to create that line of communication to the Romans. So it might be that it is in order to what? To stabilize the connection between the Jews and the Romans. So that's one possibility. Very good. Second possibility. Your guess will be as good as mine, or maybe a little bit different. But think, what else can be? Why would Hillel, that we know that he was so humble, right? You remember the story with the guys asking him on Friday afternoon all those crazy questions, and he had so much savlanut, and then with the ger in Gemara in Shabbat, that he was the one to bring the convert. We know so many beautiful things about Hillel. Why would he be the one to say, okay, my son, his son? The what? His son. Yeah. And then I think it was Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Think about, okay, I'll give you a hint. Masoret. Fiddler on the Roof, I was about to tell you. Tradition, which means, don't forget, nothing is written yet. Who is the first kli? Who is the first person that always hears what his father has to say? It's the son. Who can be the one to maintain the Masoret? You can have a wonderful student, but the one who observes the halachic authority all the time, everywhere, is whom? Is the son. It might be that in order to cement the Torah Shebe'al Peh and the Masoret, you wanted to say it's only the family members. It's the son. So that also might be that when they start developing Torah Shebe'al Peh, you keep it in the tradition itself. Okay, so that's a second suggestion. Do we have a third? I feel like in an auction. This also might be. I will tell you that I think that the idea of the Torah Shebe'al Peh and the passing on the Torah Shebe'al Peh, not that it started there, but in order to try to cement it and to try to establish some kind of one tradition, was so important that basically it says, okay, the kids will take over. Yes?
I understand that. The only thing is, in terms of meritocracy, how could somebody like Rabbi Akiva ever have gone in? Because look at his background.
That's what we said last week, 3 weeks before I left to the States. We brought this Yalkut Shimoni, the Yerushalmi, with the same story when they removed Rabban Gamliel. You remember the confrontation, and they thought maybe Rabbi Yoshua, but Rabbi Yoshua is the Baal Dava. And then they thought about Rabbi Akiva, and the Bavli just says, okay, but Rabbi Akiva has no lineage, so we will just skip over him. And we don't know what Rabbi Akiva says. The Yerushalmi says, Vaya Rabbi Akiva Meitzer. He was said, and he says, Lo shehu gadol mimeni bechokma, ela sheyesh lo zchut avot. He says, he's not wiser than me. I'm probably wiser than him, but I don't have zchut avot. But I can now create one. That's what Rabbi Akiva said. And we will see in a minute, we will see the change. So, yes? About that. that there is a line of tradition. So that's part of the second, it might be internally and externally, might be. I don't know exactly how, you might be right. I mean, who was the Shlom Tzion, Yanai, Hordus? It might be there around the same time, right? Nahon? Do I got my time correct? Might be. Yeah, it might be. Okay. So, in conclusion, flip the page to page 7, and then you see something interesting. מסכת יומא. אמר רבי יוחנן, רגע. Rabbi Yochanan lived where? Israel, and he died around 278. So you're talking about the 3rd century. He was old. He was 92 years old when he passed away. And so he started already in the 2nd century, but he was a known Amora around the 3rd century. And it says, Shlosha zeirim הם. There are 3 crowns. של מזבח, של ארון ושל שולחן. Meaning, if you look at Sefer Shmot, the way they constructed the aron, the table, and the altar, the aron and the table, there is a crown. There is a what do you call it? Lizbez, like a crown. של מזבח זכה אהרון ונטלו. Who took the crown of the mizbeach? Aharon. He is the one to bring sacrifices, and therefore it belongs to him and to his descendants. Shel shulchan, the table, zacha David unetalo. David HaMelech took over the shulchan, because what is the shulchan? Wealth, malchut. Shel Aron, the ark, where the Torah is, adayin munachu. It still sits there. Kol harotze likach yavo v'yikach. Anyone who would like to put that crown on him is more than welcome. Shema tomar pachutu. Maybe you will say, the kettle of the Aron is not that important. Keuna, malchut, teira. Talmud lomar bi melachim imlochu. Which means, if you become a Talmid Chacham, you become almost like what? A king. And not only that, bi melachim imlochu, which means, in a way, you can give orders, so to speak, to whom? To Hashem. Talmidei Chachamim, in a way, can, quote unquote, whatever that means, order God to do things for them. Okay. I'm less interested in the meaning of what he says. I am more interested in what? In the content, which is Rabbi Yochanan is now 3rd century. So 1st century, 2nd century, you have what? That the children are taking over their parents, right? In the 3rd century, Rabbi Yochanan is changing it. What does he say? Does he say that in order to learn Torah, your father needs to be a Talmid Chacham? He says it's munach shama, it's just there, and everyone can pick it up and put it on his head. Which means there is nothing to do with your father. Everyone can do it. Now, what caused the change? More people learning Torah, questionable. Okay. Do you like politics? Everyone likes politics, especially rabbinic politics. That's the best, right? Rabbi died when? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. End of the 2nd century. That's it. Mishnah is composed. Not sure about written or not, but composed. And then he died. Okay. Who takes over? Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon Bre, the Rabbi. Okay. After him, who takes over? Rabbi Yehuda Nesia. When you say Rabbi Yehuda Nesia, it's not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. That's his grandson. What do you know about his grandson? He's quoted in the Gemara. That's true. It's a very diplomatic way to avoid the question. Okay? Rabbi Shimon Berebi, Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi, was a known Talmid Chacham, and he took over. But after Rabbi passed away, there was already a bit of tension. Who was one of his most dedicated students who did not take over, even though it might be that he was really the one who should? Someone very famous. Rav. Rav was a dedicated student of Rabbi, but Rabbi did not give him a full smicha, and then he found himself where? In Bavel. He left Israel and he went to Bavel. Then you also had Bar Kapara. Bar Kapara, who was on the border between Tana and Amora, he also had some runnings with Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi was a very, very strong personality, incredibly righteous, wise, incredible organizer, a diplomat, but it comes with the territory. Let's put it like that. He was criticized many times that what? That he leads his chatzer, okay, that he leads his dynasty with too much of what? Of nesiut. Let's call it like that. Or with what would you call it? With too much of what? Authority. Might be authority. We will say today in the language, he takes himself too seriously. Okay? And then the grandson, who was at the time of Rabbi Yochanan, was the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, but was not highly regarded. Let's put it like that. Not that he was not totally, he was disregarded, but he was not highly regarded. And I would imagine that if we were correct in our analysis of why it started with Hillel, so first and foremost, at the time of Rabbi Yochanan, already the tradition is already being formed. So I don't need necessarily father-son. That's A. B. They don't talk much to the Romans, okay, in the time of the Amorim. So you don't need, quote-unquote, what? A representative. The Jews basically start concentrating on what? Internally, how to build this Jewish community after there is no Nesiut almost. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi is gone. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi is not exactly the image of his grandfather. And therefore, you need to what? To increase the number of Talmidei Chachamim. More and more Talmidei Chachamim, because maybe, if 1,000 come to a Bet Midrash, maybe 2 of them will be what? Worthy of Talmidei Chachamim. That's, by the way, even in the time of the Gemara. If 1,000 נכנסים, 2 יוצאים. Anyone here is an accountant? A CPA? Anyone is here and good in math? Even if you are not that good in math, we are talking about 2%. Okay? We're not even talking about a shlish. It's 0.2%, sorry. Yeah, 0.2%. 0.2% of people, of students who come to the Bet Midrash, come out as Talmidei Chachamim. Okay, Hamevin Yavin. So, the idea is what? The idea is that Rabbi Yochanan in the 3rd century in Eretz Israel says, כל מי שרוצה לבוא ליטול, יבוא ויטול. And not only that, he gives you a carrot. It's even better than kehuna vemalchut, because you are in a way, I don't want to say control God, this is not the word. You can really even encourage God to do what you want if you are a really Talmid Chacham. Okay. So now really the conclusion of the conclusion. For modern people, this subject matter was like, what? What are you talking about? Like the son takes over the father. But then when you start realizing, it says, this community I know, and this community I know, and this community I know. So it also applied even in our times. That's A. B. How do we overcome it? With contracts and re-elections. That's how you avoid the issue, most of the times, not always, the halachic issue of Yerusha. And the third is what we are missing in today's world, the way we look at it, is that there is need to be some kind of symmetry between the rabbi and the kehillah, the needs of the kehillah. The son can be a tremendous Talmid Chacham, but the kehillah changed. He's not the same. Or the son changed, or the rabbi changed, and the kehillah did not. Whatever it is, sometimes you need to have some kind of a buy-in from the kehillah to the rabbi, because if not, ma hu yaseh sham, just speak to himself. So that part was not exactly emphasized in this subject matter, but it did touch on some of the principles of the halachic matter of Yerusha, karate as a Yerusha Ruchanit, that a father can give us an inheritance, not only his material possessions, but also his spiritual position, and then position. And then how does it affect the community? That was really almost not discussed here, which is definitely missing. You are with me? Which means the question was, does the father has the right to give it, but no one asked, Rega, is that good for the community or not? That was less of a consideration. Yes, Achona Chaviva.
When the father died, he was a big time couple, the son wanted to take over, and the people who were in charge of choosing didn't have a very high level of power. They didn't see the potential in the son. And as you said, the son very often absorbs to such a degree that he will also be a Talmid Chacham, and that's the way it was with this man. And they didn't choose him. He went on to become even greater than his father, and the community to this day goes achet. But that shows the importance of having people who can recognize whether the son can take over from.
Right. So now maybe I have another question. Do the children of the search committee has a Yerusha to sit on the second search committee? But for that, next year.